This week on Rova Automotive, we're playing with panels. All right, moving ahead on our Factory 5 Mark IV Cobra kit car. So there you can see pictures of it. So this is what it looks like when it was shipped with all these panels on the vehicle. Now these panels at this point are held on just loosely with one or two sheet metal screws each. So they have to be riveted on as their final installation. So to do that first step, we're going to have Mark there. Mark and Katie, they're taking the sheet metal panels off. So this is kind of a multi-step process. They're going to remove the panel. They're going to expose the back bracing. So the black tubes that you see, there's actually the chassis of the car. So these panels have to get riveted to the chassis of the car using 1/8-inch rivets. So there's a lot of drilling, a lot of marking involved. So you saw Katie there trying to kind of mark the location on the back of the panel where the tube will be behind the panel. Mark will take the panel off, and you can see the what they would call a witness mark, which shows where the panel goes. So that was the side closeout panel. Here's the upper trunk panel. And that shows us where we can go ahead and drill. So this is the lower trunk panel, the underside of it. It shows where all those hashed areas are where the frame contacts the panel, where we can go ahead and drill that. So we can use that, an 1/8-inch drill bit, and we can go ahead and drill it. Now, once they've been drilled, we'll use this template from Factory 5, and this template speeds up the ability for us to drill these holes. On the aluminum panels where it's contacting the frame, they want about every 3 inches. On the panels where it's just drilling or attaching to another aluminum panel, it's about every 2 inches. So they give us this handy template. So we'll preliminarily drill holes on the panel. We'll put them all back together using those clecos, which are those things sticking out of the metal. And we'll mark the holes for the rivets all the way up the panel. So right there where he's marking is 2 panels coming together. So he's going to mark that. He's going to drill it, and then he's going to stick a cleco in there. And the reason for the cleco is that kind of holds those panels together while he continues to drill. You don't want to drill and then have the panels move or shift in a way that would not allow the other holes to line up. So he'll kind of stick those clecos in there each step of the way to kind of make sure everything stays tight, nothing moves. So it's a pretty tedious process to go through. There's lots of drilling, lots of clecos, and lots of adjustment, making sure everything fits right. But it's a slow process, but it slowly builds us a car. So there you can see the panel that's been clecoed in place. All of the holes have been drilled. So that's ready to come off and get the next step in the treatment. So either going to be painted, going to be powder coated. You can see Mark's pretty happy about that. So this is one of the ways we're testing. So to treat the engine bay panels, those are going to be really the only panels that are exposed. So this is kind of the first thing we're trying out to see what it looks like. So we're going to try with a brushed appearance here. So we're going to take some Scotch-Brite and we're going to just rub over the panel. It's going to give it a nice brushed finish. We can then put some shark hide, which is a protectant over it that will keep it from corroding. There you can see the finished versus the untreated. So we'll kind of keep you informed on what we decide to do there. So this week we also had a special visitor. Mr. Cini came down. He wanted to help out a little bit. He knew we were putting the front suspension in for the final time. We'd already done our test fitting with the front suspension, knew everything would fit, got everything mocked up. So then we took it all apart, greased everything, got everything in its final configuration to go back on the car for good. So Mr. Cini came down. He's going to help us out. We put a impact gun in his hand and told him to get to work. So Dylan helped him out here. This was kind of an awkward install because we left the coil over shock attached, so it was kind of hard to get that thing. The lower A arm is what he's working on there. That red piece that was, that we did a little bit of manufacturing on earlier. But he's going to go ahead and run the bolts in there with the impact wrench. Dylan's going to hold the bolt on the nut on the backside, and he gets everything in there. So it was exciting to have Mr. Cini down there. The kids really enjoyed watching him do a little bit of work, and hopefully he got a little bit of a taste of what we do pretty much on a daily basis in the Rova Auto Shop. Just kind of testing everything, making sure it fits, and then getting everything in for its final time. So after he left, we went ahead and we got to get the the bolts tightened. Got to get everything torqued down to spec. Here we're working on getting the tie rod into the steering knuckle there. Now that's not the final position for that particular piece. We've still got to get the steering wheel centered. We're waiting on a part that will allow us to finish out the steering system. But it's a pretty good shot of the lower A-arms, the coilover, the steering knuckle, the upper A-arm, and the tie rod end all attached there. The only thing that we haven't done at that point is tighten down the hub, and Mark's going to do that right here. These need to be tightened down to about 230 foot-pounds of torque. So you can see we got the brake rotor on there, the brake caliper. The hoses that are on the brake calipers aren't going to work. We found that out. They're going to be too short, so we're going to have to order some hoses that fit. That's kind of our process as we get this thing. We mock everything up, find out what works, what doesn't, what we need to do to change it, and then adapt and overcome. So we got everything up, front suspension, everything on the rear suspension was all set. So now it was time to put the wheels and tires on it and get it back on the ground. So the wheels and tires you see are actually just the wheels and tires that were off of the Mustang donor car. These are not the final wheels that are going to go on it, but they're going to serve the purpose of getting the car down on the ground under its own weight so we can torque all of the suspension components in. So there'll be a little bit of weight on the front. We'll probably wait to do that until we get an engine installed. So that's about it for this week. That's about where we're at. So we're waiting on a couple of parts for the steering. As soon as we get those, we'll get the steering wheel and steering linkage installed. We'll start plumbing the brake lines and the fuel lines. So here's a couple of shots you can see of the car sitting under its own weight. So as always, we appreciate you watching. We appreciate your support.